Hello there guys, welcome back to another video, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a quick album review of the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour. This album came out in 1967 and it was the Beatles' continuation to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It basically is a compilation of singles by the second side, but it has some of the best original psychedelic Beatles songs on its first side. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, Magical Mystery Tour is one of my personal favorite Beatles albums, mainly because of its psychedelic sounding production and all of its songs. I think some of my favorite songs off of Magical Mystery Tour have to be Blue Jay Way or I Am the Walrus. And also Baby You Are a Rich Man is a good one, but it doesn't count technically since it's a single and it was already released before the album. So basically, Magical Mystery Tour began off being like a soundtrack to the movie Magical Mystery Tour, which aired on TV for Boxing Day in England. And I've seen the movie, it's a pretty weird movie. I do not recommend any of you watching that. Magical Mystery Tour also happens to be one of the very first albums that they made without Brian Epstein after his tragical passing after Sgt. Pepper's, which means that this album kind of started the conflict between the band. It's also the first album to be pressed on Apple Records, even though the album's label. This is a reissue version, a capital reissue. It says Capital. It's an American reissue. Because technically, this album wasn't pressed on wasn't pressed on Apple originally. There are Apple copies, but it's mainly pressed on like the Capitol copies because this album was an American album before becoming like an official part of the Beatles catalog. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. The album only has like one bad song, and that would either have to be Your Mother Should Know or Flying. I really like all the other songs, especially the title track. I would have liked if they would have continued with the jazz thing that happened at the end of Magical Mystery Tour a bit more. Fool on the Hill, what can I say about that song? That song is a masterpiece. Flying is the first and only song credited to um, Lennon, McCartney, um, Harrison, and Starr because it's an instrumental. The instrumental is kind of important in the film, it's just them just showing off mountains, but it's like a pretty cool track. It's a nice track to just relax after the chaoticness of the Fool on the Hill. I wouldn't say it's chaos, but it's just definitely just a good break before you go into Blue Jay Way, which is definitely one of the most psychedelic Beatles songs. And then speaking of psychedelic, we have the least psychedelic song on this album, Your Mother Should Know. I personally do not like that song. I find it a tad boring, but it's still fun to listen to it. Then we have I Am the Walrus. That is my favorite Beatles songs of all time, if you want to know. I just love the production, the lyrics, the musical qualities, also the little bit of sound collage at the end. Then you have the singles. All of these are good except for Penny. No, I'm kidding. Penny Lane is not a bad song. It's it's a pretty good song. Like the second half, I want to say it's better than the first half, but that's technically cheating since it's already been out as a single. So you know, Magical Mystery Tour is definitely my favorite album from the Beatles, considering it's after one of the most conceptual albums. It's definitely one of the most childish albums in their category, but it's a pretty fun album to listen to. Like, if you do not want to listen to, heavy music or like the White Album, which is almost 2 hours long, you should definitely listen to this one because this one is definitely the most fun you'll ever have listening to a Beatles record. Other than that, this record gets a 8 out of 10 score from me, which means it's a pretty valid record. You should check it out.